Carlinhos decides to bring Grace, a stranger, as his fake girlfriend to his family's traditional Christmas gathering. She shocks them with her free-spiritedness, and Carlinhos can't help warming up to her. Carlinhos is working hard in his office when Leonardo comes to him with some documents. Carlinhos hopes it's not another problem, because he already has plenty of those. Carlinhos is reviewing reports and signing documents, and has more emails than he can take. Sounds like a typical Monday morning. Leonardo assures him it's just the bidding documents he needs to sign that day itself. Carlinhos takes the documents, but he can't handle the stress anymore. His cousin and Pedro Afonso's team have also taken half a day. After wrapping up work, Carlinhos is still worried about dinner with his whole family. Before that, he wants to surprise his girlfriend, Babella, and propose. He has already planned their engagement party in 3 months, and their first kid within a year. This will surely go well. He has also planned the kid's education, and how he will finally take over the company, after 27 years. No pressure. His driver Jorge is divorced now, and is juggling between 2 girls. He's glad he's working on Christmas, so he doesn't have to decide who to spend it with. He still feels that Carlinhos is lucky to find the love of his life. Carlinhos enters Babella's place, and tries to look around for her. He notices some lingerie in the room, so he assumes she must be in the bath. He almost scares her, and wants to join her in the bath. She asks him to stay put, but he still takes a beautiful mental picture of her. She feels they should shift their conversation to the living room, but he doesn't think there's any need. They've been together for 10 years now, so he's excited about taking a step forward. He proposes to her, but she doesn't know what to say. That's not a good sign. Another woman comes out of the tub who can't hold her breath any longer. That has to hurt. Carlinhos freaks out and runs out of the house. Babella follows him, but he has forgotten his keys inside and begs someone to open the door. Grace, who is a stranger, wants to enter the gate since she needs some help. They ask a neighbor spying on them to open it, but Grace asks him to jump over the gate. Carlinhos manages to climb out but lands right on top of Grace. The neighbor also opens the door at the same time and hits Grace's head. As Babella calls out to Carlinhos, he drags Grace along and runs to the beach with her. Carlinhos tries to find a dish towel for ice, but Grace uses his shirt instead. He takes it off and gives it to her, but Grace is still amused by how Babella betrayed him. I mean, it is a little funny. He can tell she's not from Rio de Janeiro, and she admits she's from Paraíba. Her family lives on a farm in the country, and she was on her way to spend Christmas in Aspen with them. She stopped in Rio for a while to take in the beach, but all her belongings were stolen from her. She can't even tell her family she's there since their numbers are on her phone that got stolen too. Carlinhos knows the cops can help her, but she feels that will complicate matters. She's surely hiding something. Grace insists the universe doesn't want her luggage to be with her. Jorge takes them to his contact, Sarah, at the police station. She's not working because the 23rd is also off for Christmas. She claims they only deal with emergencies, but Grace reminds her that losing everything at Christmas is an emergency for her. She keeps ranting about the justice in the country, so Sarah threatens to arrest her. Carlinhos wonders if Jorge found Sarah on a dating app, but he asks them to keep it quiet. That's a guilty conscience. Grace is frustrated that the emergency at the police station is all about finding out their secret Santa. Makes sense. Grace feels bad for trusting Carlinhos and Jorge to help her out and storms off. Carlinhos still assures Grace they will figure something out to get her stuff back. Grace seems sure Sarah wants to arrest her and feels bad she will have to spend Christmas in the police station. Jorge reminds Carlinhos about his commitment to his grandma, Lady Sophia. Carlinhos wants to skip Christmas this year, but Grace refuses to let him do that. He feels bad about the ring. He feels he can just melt it and use it for something else. That's a great idea. He's worried about turning up alone for Christmas with his family, so Grace offers to help him. She agrees to be his fake new girlfriend, so he doesn't have to explain anything to his family. She admits she's only helping so she doesn't end up in the station, and so she can spend Christmas with someone's family. Carlinhos doesn't want to lie to his family, but Grace asks if he can deal with explaining the bathtub incident. No, definitely not a good idea. Grace feels scared of the helicopter, while Carlinhos keeps watching his old videos with Babella. Grace feels Carlinhos' place is Christmasland, and can't believe he has an actual sleigh. She hugs the cotton snowman and starts throwing the gifts next to the tree. Carlinhos keeps catching them, and tries to make her control her excitement. Good luck with that. She even disassembles his chimney so she can make way for Santa. Carlinhos realizes he didn't think this through, and is worried about Grace with his family. Too late for that now. Francisca, who is Sophia's personal assistant, asks about the commotion. Carlinhos explains that Grace is his new girlfriend. Francisca asks Grace to not run around the hall and brings her to a room they already prepared for Babella. She asks about Grace's bags, so Carlinhos asks her for another favor. Carlinhos is glad to see Solange, who is Pedro Afonso's girlfriend. Pedro keeps climbing on Carlinhos and teasing him. Solange asks about Babella, so Carlinhos explains he met someone else. Grace slides down the stairs and makes another grand entrance. Pedro and Solange judge Grace for her behavior and clothes, so she explains it's the only thing Francisca had for her. She claims her lack of clothes is because Carlinhos keeps asking for sex. She pretends she's in a lot of pain, because Carlinhos never stops. Carlinhos tries to explain this won't work out because his family is uptight and intimidating. He introduces Grace to his aunt, Iris, who is constantly on the phone in a meeting. Grace is almost scared of how serious his family is, so he introduces her to his mother, Alice. Grace assumes Alice is his aunt since Carlinhos calls her by her name. Grace insists he needs to treat her as his mother, but Alice doesn't want to infantilize their relationship. Alice understands Grace has a different upbringing and asks how they met. They don't have their stories straight, but they make up something to convince her that Carlinhos fell for Grace when he laid eyes on her. Everyone will surely buy this. Carlinhos' dad, Aeneas, comes to meet them and takes him aside. He wants to know who ended things between him and Babella. Aeneas feels it's very strange he got a stranger to the house. It's not as strange as his girlfriend sharing a tub with another woman, but okay. Aeneas feels such mistakes by Carlinhos can lead to them losing the company to Pedro. Carlinhos assures him he will like Grace, but she starts puking and gargling in front of them. At least the night is still young. Grace asks Isolda where she can get food, but she's more interested in reading her book. Carlinhos' other aunt, Milu, has heard about Grace and assures her she's the fun one. She helps Grace get closer to food, but Grace starts fangirling over Bento Leo. He is Milu's partner, and an amazing rapper with great dance videos. Milu introduces Grace to their son, Tails, who is a monk and has sworn a vow of silence. When someone announces the time, everyone starts refining themselves. Carlinhos also does his best to hide Grace behind him. What a great plan. Everyone seems scared of Sophia, and Pedro tries his best to butter her up. She can see through him easily, but informs the family about her bypass surgery. The doctor has told her to leave the board at the company to avoid stress so she can purchase a new heart. They all actually discuss how hard it is to get a heart. What a family. Sophia asks for their attention since she can't get another heart. Sophia wants to find her replacement on the board and wants to choose her successor that weekend itself. Isolda explains to Grace that while Aeneas is the current chief executive officer, Sophia is finding someone for the chair of the board of directors. Milu explains in simplified terms that this new person will be the boss and will inherit the Iron Lady's throne. Now that makes much more sense. Milu asks Grace to place her bets on which one of them will win. Sophia hears an unfamiliar laugh and asks Carlinhos to reveal who he's hiding. Why is this so scary? Sophia asks Grace to come closer, and she shocks all of them by kissing Sophia on the cheek. Grace thinks she might be better off at the police station, but is getting the feeling that Sophia likes her. She hasn't ended her yet, so that might be a possibility. Grace is struggling with her dinner utensils, so she decides to eat the escargot with her hand. Milu follows her lead, and it sounds too sexual. Carlinhos apologizes to Sophia for missing a bidding deadline by half an hour. Pedro tries to put him down and suggests such incompetency can't be handled in business. Sophia asks Carlinhos not to worry since the bid was rigged anyway. She also reminds Pedro he shouldn't do anything to win if that soils her reputation. Pedro brings the topic back to Carlinhos' breakup with Babella and thinks it was too abrupt. You and me both, brother. He feels this breakup concerns them as a construction company, because Babella has been their princess of cement till now. Grace comes forward to defend Carlinhos, but Sophia also wants him to answer Pedro. Carlinhos claims they are mutually separated, but Pedro doesn't believe it. He decides to call Babella and invite her to lunch the next day. He is curious to know why she disappeared from their lives suddenly after 10 years. He starts dialing her number, so Grace snatches his phone and drops it in a glass of water. Quick thinking. Grace assures them she is in her senses and claims to be offended since they don't acknowledge her presence. She doesn't want to hear all about how great and pretty Babella is. Pedro decides to focus his attention on Grace, who seems like a hysterical stranger. I can't argue with that too. He wants to learn about where Grace comes from. Grace agrees to give him any details if Pedro can prove he knows his own family. She starts by asking him Solange's favorite dish, but he doesn't even know she doesn't eat meat. She gets offended and walks off, but Grace decides to continue the game. She asks Alice and Aeneas about Carlinhos' first word, but neither of them knows it. She asks Iris what her daughter, Isolde, asked Santa, but Iris doesn't know Isolde believes in him. She keeps asking more personal questions till all of them start throwing bread and shouting at each other. Genius distraction strategy. Grace assures Carlinhos families fight like this sometimes, and they'll be better off and love each other more. She feels he did his family a favor since they were too formal and bursting with pressure. She knows this will help them blow off some steam and asks Carlinhos to join them. Grace is shocked to find Francisca in her room in the middle of the night. She's just curious to know how a simple country bumpkin like her crashed their holiday party. Francisca threatens Grace with violence if she doesn't reveal the whole truth. She wants to protect Carlinhos, so Grace decides to fill her in. Grace clarifies that she doesn't want his money and only wants a joyful Christmas with a family. Francisca feels she should spend it with hers, but Grace reveals that her father is Papa Noel. She remembers the time from her childhood when Santa, or Papa Noel, was always busy granting the wishes of all the other kids. She knows how stressful a Santa job is and remembers when her father came to meet her during breaks. He gives her a special locket of the first Papa Noel, Saint Nicholas, who blessed all families. Grace explains that after she lost her father, it didn't feel right to spend Christmas alone. This is why she goes to a different tourist town every year, so she can find a family to spend Christmas with. This year, when she called out, Carlinhos immediately responded. She shows Francisca pictures of her Christmases from other years with different families. She even shows her a Christmas where the whole family got fit and had boiled chicken for the holidays. Well, that's surely an experience. She shows other pictures with an annoying guy, Rui, who assumed he was her boyfriend. Grace clarifies that she doesn't usually date people from the families she spends Christmas with. She's only pretending to date Carlinhos now, so no one finds out that Babella cheated on him with another woman. How noble is this? Francisca feels bad for Carlinhos, but she doesn't want to lie to the family. Grace begs Francisca to keep this secret just till Christmas lunch, after which she will never see them again. Never say never. Grace just needs to spend the holidays with the family, so Francisca agrees. Carlinhos notices Alice painting early in the morning. She's making a present for Sophia, but also remembers that his first word was mama. Finally, Carlinhos freaks out when he finds Sophia sitting with Grace. She seems to love how Sophia doesn't hold back her feelings. Carlinhos tries to take Grace away for a match. Sophia hopes Grace is playing, and she starts bragging about how good she is. Grace is assuming they're talking about a card game, but claims she's great at polo too. Grace asks the men to pay attention to her game, but ends up falling from her horse. Off to a great start. Aeneas is regretting not having Babella on their team, who won silver at the Olympics. Pedro is the team captain and is playing against Carlinhos. Pedro points out that they're missing a player, so Carlinhos rides towards Grace to ask if she's ready. She pretends she was born ready, but doesn't like the temperament of her mare. The other ladies watch the game and feel bad about Babella not playing. Milu thinks Grace is more fun than Babella and cheers for her. No arguments there. Sophia asks them to not cause any distractions, and they begin the game with her whistle. Pedro's team gets the upper hand, and he teases Carlinhos for being lost without Babella. Grace takes offense and assures Carlinhos she's ready. She manages to score a point for them but hits Sophia right in the nose. Such a bittersweet victory. This is the first time a spectator has been injured in polo, and Sophia is getting medical attention. Grace feels embarrassed about almost slaying his grandma and wants to disappear. Carlinhos takes Grace to the Petropolis Christmas fair, where he came as a kid. Grace loves the Christmas spirit and gets a photo snapped with Carlinhos. He can tell she loves Christmas, but he finds it too capitalistic. Grace then promises to do something to make this more exciting for him. She gets a nutcracker mask for herself and forces him to wear the mouse one. Carlinhos admits he wants the company for Christmas, but feels like it will take a miracle for that to happen. He also doesn't believe in Papa Noel, which seems to upset her. He assures her that the accident won't affect his chances at the company, but Grace pretends she's only upset since she's hungry. She asks him to get cotton candy while she gets croquettes. She finds Rui in a stall and tries to hide her face behind the mask. Rui follows her, but she drags Carlinhos along and keeps running till they lose him. Well, that was close. She explains that Rui is an annoying guy from her past. Carlinhos understands that everyone has some heartache to deal with. They share cotton candy and decide to take a tour of the Petropolis Museum. Carlinhos is always on edge because Grace keeps sitting on chairs where she's not allowed. They find a replica of Dom Pedro II's throne, who inherited Brazil when he was 14. Grace can't imagine having that kind of pressure, but Carlinhos thinks inheritance is an obligation and not a choice. Wow, so deep. Grace feels Carlinhos whines too much about his family and should be grateful for them. She tries to confess something, but Carlinhos is just happy he's getting to be her fake boyfriend. He feels she's very genuine and tries to kiss her. She hesitates and reminds him about dinner, which makes Carlinhos remember they have to attend a Christmas ball. Just what we needed. Pedro is surprised Carlinhos has the guts to show up at the ball after what Grace did to Sophia. Solange is tired of their childish fights and walks off. Grace comes down the stairs wearing a beautiful gown, and Carlinhos can't take his eyes off her. Pedro tries to be creepy with her, so she smacks his head. Someone had to do it. Grace feels Sophia looks graceful even in a bandage, and thinks Carlinhos should give her some moral support. Carlinhos wants to spend time with Grace first, but Francisca interrupts them. Pedro takes Sophia's drink from Francisca to butter her up, but Isolda snatches it when he's distracted. When does the buttering stop? Grace complains about her drink, so Francisca reminds her it took a lot of work to make her look like she does. She asks Grace to suck it up and smile. Carlinhos takes Grace to the dance floor and promises he will lead her. Grace is sure she's doing it wrong, but Carlinhos decides to slow it down for her. She wants the next dance to be her choice, and changes the music to make it more lively. She puts on one of Bento's tracks, and everyone is shocked, as she twerks and dances with Bento and Milu. Finally, something that looks like a party. Sophia turns off the music and asks why Grace wanted to change the song she selected for her guests. This is making us nervous. Grace thinks Sophia's problem is that she wants everyone to get along when they clearly don't. Sophia refuses to admit she has forced everyone, so they all agree with her. But Grace knows they're only with her to fight for her company director's position. Grace feels the music of Brazilian King Roberto Carlos is truly what can hold families together. She asks the disco jockey to put on a tune so she can sing his songs. She sounds great, and ropes in Carlinhos to sing with her too. Very soon, Bento and Solange also join, despite Pedro's protests. Aeneas and Alice remember the good times too, and Grace also manages to convince Sophia to sing along. Well, that was unexpected. Sophia is finally having fun, and decides she wants Carlinhos to take her place. As they all celebrate, Pedro walks out and hides in the bush when he hears Grace and Carlinhos coming out. Carlinhos is surprised by how freely his family acted that day, and thanks Grace for helping them. She's glad he's the boss of the company like he always wanted. She just asks Carlinhos to trust her, and her St. Nicholas locket. She admits she has carried it everywhere since her father gave it to her. She also knows she will never forget this Christmas. Carlinhos realizes they're under the mistletoe, but Grace apparently doesn't know anything about that tradition. Carlinhos doesn't believe no one has ever tried to kiss her under the mistletoe. We don't either. He convinces her to let him kiss her, and they spend the night together. Grace returns Francisca's dress in the morning before hitting the road. Francisca has noticed how happy Carlinhos is with her and wants Grace to stay. Grace denies that she likes him too, but Francisca keeps assuring her Carlinhos surely does. It's kind of obvious. Grace thinks Carlinhos likes the version of her whose family is apparently in Aspen. Francisca thinks Grace should tell him the truth, but she prefers to leave. She doesn't want to risk loving anyone again and losing them. Francisca still convinces Grace to reconsider. Carlinhos wakes up alone and tries to look all around for Grace. He joins Bento's live video awkwardly, but is only worried about where Grace is. No one has seen her, but Grace surprises him by coming from behind. She assures him she doesn't want to leave all the food. We surely believe that. He tries to kiss her again, but she reminds him of their agreement that she would leave that day. She tries to confess something, but they are dragged to play a secret Santa guessing game. When Iris gives a Bitcoin to Isolda for Christmas, Grace feels they don't understand how gifts work. I mean, that is pretty generous. Pedro takes the stage and asks Grace to stick around. He claims his secret Santa is an idiot who got tricked by his own girlfriend. No points for guessing it's Carlinhos. He admits Babella cheated on him with another woman, and everyone is sympathetic. Pedro had no clue about this since he was talking about Grace. Well, this can't be good. Pedro has managed to get Rui to their house and asks him to explain how he met Grace. Rui claims Grace is a liar because he met her when she was crying about not getting to spend Christmas in Aspen. Carlinhos feels Grace has been lying to him the whole time. Grace tries to explain that she has never stolen anything from the families she spent Christmas with. Grace admits she initially came with Carlinhos to spend Christmas with his family, but things changed. Carlinhos doesn't believe her anymore, and feels like she's after his money. Grace asks him to perish with his money, since she's glad she doesn't have to spend more time with a crazy family. I can't blame her. Babella also arrives right then and ignores Carlinhos to ask for Solange. Well, at least Pedro looks worried. Carlinhos runs after Grace because he feels bad about accusing her of being a gold digger. He admits he's just angry because she lied to him. She feels he's being a hypocrite and asks him to let her go. Carlinhos' life loses meaning when she leaves, and he has no interest in running the company. He gets annoyed with Christmas decorations and feels lost on the new chair. Sophia asks him to open a drawer and shows him proof that her father was an Austrian count. She wouldn't have married her husband without pedigree, so she invented hers. Carlinhos doesn't understand why all the women in his life lie to him. Sophia makes him realize everyone doesn't have the decency to tell the truth all the time. She admits she didn't like Grace initially, which is why she confronted her on the day Carlinhos found them sitting together. Sophia knows who Grace is, but also feels she's the best thing that happened to their family. Finally, someone makes sense. Carlinhos realizes he needs to give up the position of authority because he's always running on autopilot. He feels this job will give him more stress and wants to do something that brings him joy. Good call. Sophia also understands that he needs to do this for himself. Carlinhos starts planning a grand romantic gesture to win Grace back. This will surely work as planned. He wants to meet her on New Year's Eve at the place where they first met. They just need to make sure she gets his message and knows her real name is Gracianne too. Jorge also knows the area around where she lives because he dropped her off. Bento has hit 10 million followers, who can also help Carlinhos find her. Carlinhos records a song for Grace through Bento's profile and creates pamphlets and hoardings with their photos. His whole family helps him find Grace, and it starts trending online. Tails also breaks his vow of silence to ask the crowd to listen to Carlinhos, who is clearly in love. Grace books a bus ticket for herself and is annoyed by Carlinhos' posters everywhere. Milu has thrown a huge party, where everyone whose name is Gracianne has turned up. Aeneas is sure she will come for Carlinhos. Rui is also attending the party and asks Carlinhos to let Grace go. Get over it already. Pedro is worried about Babella stealing his girl, while Iris and Isolda call him for an urgent meeting. They don't know who's going to take over from Carlinhos, but feel their chances are good. Jorge and Francisca also flirt with each other, at least something is working out. Sophia turns up right outside the bus Grace has just boarded. She asks Grace to join them, but Grace feels humiliated by their family. Sophia admits they needed the reality check she gave them and reminds her Carlinhos is trying his best to change. Grace thinks they're from different worlds, so Sophia explains that he has given up his post at the company. She insists Grace should give him another chance. Carlinhos does a countdown to New Year's, but Grace doesn't turn up. Sophia calls out to Carlinhos and has Grace hiding behind her. Grace tries to act pricey with him and gives him limited time to explain himself. Carlinhos admits he gets dizzy in her love and doesn't have the right words to describe the feeling. They do their own countdown to New Year's again and kiss.